Okay. Okay. The last year we spoke about the beginning of Siman Kuf Tzadik. I want to continue a little bit on Sif Aleph and Siman Kuf Tzadik. Some of the kudas which are important. The end of Sif Aleph, the beginning of Sif Aleph says that she feels that blood came out from her body. And then towards the end of the Sif it says, she had a feeling that the mokir opened up to release blood, and she did a bdika afterwards, she didn't find anything. Yesh mi she'omer shehi tmeya. There is the opinion which says that she is tamei. So there's 2 points over here that I want to discuss, 2 separate topics, rather short. First one is what hרגשה are we talking about over here? Second thing is what's achar kach? How long afterwards does she check? So the first thing is what's hרגשה? In the beginning of this seif, it says shetargish sheyotza dam mipsara. She feels that blood came out of her body, mipsara. Towards the end of the seif, it says hirgisha sheniftach mekayra. She felt that the mokir, the rechem, opened up to release blood. In Siman Kuf Pei Gimel, in the beginning of Siman Kuf Pei Gimel, where it talks about nida deiraisa, it writes vehu shetargish b'yitziasei. She should feel that the blood is coming out. The Alter Rebbe over there in Siman Kuf Pei Gimel, in the beginning over there, Sifkat and Gimel, right away explains what's b'yitziasei, what shetargish b'yitziasei, she feels. What hרגשה are we talking about over here? Mehamokir laproizer. It goes from the rechem to the canal from where it flows out. Why? The Alter Rebbe says, Shenemar bivsara. Pasuk says bivsara. Ad shetargish bivsara, until when she becomes tamei, shetargish bivsara, she feels in her basar that she had a period. Kontrasachen over there in Sif, on Sifkat and Gimel, there's a second kontrasachen in the Alter Rebbe in Siman Kuf Pei Gimel. He explains as follows. According to the Rambam, according to the shit of the Rambam, that we say that every period has hרגשה. So according to the Rambam, if she had a hרגשה that the blood came out, for sure she also felt if it was from the mokir or from the aliyah. She knows where it came from. She knows if it was dam nida or it was dam which is not dam nida, not from the mokir. But according to Taisvis, the Alter Rebbe explains over there, he says from Taisvis it's mashma that there's no way that the woman will be able to know if there's a makah in the rechem. There's no way for her to know if it came from the rechem or from the makah. And therefore the Alter Rebbe continues that maybe we have to say that according to Taisvis, you bichlal don't need to have the hרגשה of Yetzias Adam min hamokir. You don't have to have that definition of hרגשה that she feels that the blood came out of the mokir. Right? Because the Rambam and Ramban and Trumas Hadeshen, they all hold that hרגשה means that she feels the mokir opening up. And that, but according to Taisvis, the Alter Rebbe says, maybe according to Taisvis, you don't need that full hרגשה of the mokir opening up. But as long as you feel the blood flowing in the Bais HaChitzon, it already becomes tamei. Why? Because the pasuk says, shetargish bivsara, feels it in her flesh. And that could also explain, not that it came out, sheyotza, shetargish bivsara, should feel it in her flesh. And if that means, even if it didn't come out of the body, if it's only in the Bais HaChitzon, which is also part of her flesh, it's considered tamei. It's a tumah. That's the hרגשה that makes her tamei. And that's how he understands from the Sefer HaTruma. So also from the Sefer HaTruma, it's the same idea. And the Alter Rebbe explains over there that is why over here in Siman Kuf Tzadik it says the lashon is sheyotza dam mi b'sara. came out from some place in her flesh, not that she feels it bivasara in her flesh. That means that as long as she has some feeling of the blood coming out that's flowing from the rechem outwards, that's also considered a hargasha. And now, what happens? That's one form of hargasha. Right? One form of hargasha is psichas hamakir. Either the question is, does she feel that the makir, she has to feel that the makir opened up. That's the shit of the Rambam and the Ramban. Or that she feels that blood is flowing from the makir out. And the Alter Rebbe says, maybe according to Tosfos, even if she doesn't feel that it's flowing from the makir out, but it's flowing through that area, it's already considered a hargasha. There's another form of hargasha that the Rambam mentions, which is nizdazea gufa. Well, higisha gufa v'nizdaza. So what does that mean? That's explained in the Madura Basra, in the first Hagah of Madura Basra, first Hagah on Madura Basra in Kuf Pei Gimel. Over there, for the first Alter Rebbe explains what it is, what the shit is. We're going to go first to the Hagah, then to the Pnim of the Madura Basra. So first Alter Rebbe says that Medina you don't need zezua together with hargasha. But as long as she feels that there's some hargasha of blood coming out of the makir, she becomes asur. Even if there means the fact that the Rambam says gisha gufa ven izdaza, that is hargasha and izdaza, you don't need both. As long as there is a hargasha that it left the makir and it's going through the body, even if it did not come out of the body yet, and even if she didn't do a bdika, she already becomes tamei. However, if she did not have any hargasha at all, right? So that you go back to the Madura Basra on top, not Nago. Over there, he says, "Mistame ene dam nida abo min hamakir." It's probably not dam nida abo min hamakir. And then in the same Madura Basra, he explains to you what hargasha is. So we're talking about hargashas. What kind of hargasha? So it's hargasha like this, hargasha that comes out of the makir. You open the makir, opens up, the body shakes. What is this hargasha? So Alter Rebbe defines the definition of hargasha. Alter Rebbe says as follows. He says when the Gemara says re'iyah, the woman sees blood. When she has re'iyah, she becomes tamei mid'oraisa. What re'iyah are we talking about? Obviously, we're talking about hargasha. But it says, what's this re'iyah? It's an interesting definition of what re'iyah is. He says, Eino re'iyah sa'ayin. It's not that she sees it with her eyes. It means that the fact that it doesn't have to come out of the body. It's not that if she sees blood flowing with her eyes. Rather, re'iyah sa'alev. She feels in her heart that there's a re'iyah. Oy ein ha'seichel v'ha'machshove v'hadas. She has knowledge or understanding that something like that happened. שמרגיש וידע בשינוי הגוף כהרגשת מרגליים שנקרו ממקיימן אף שלא יוצא לחוץ. It means you have that feeling or understanding or knowledge that something in your body changed and something is moving from one place to another. Change in your body. But if the blood, and that is the hargasha, when the blood comes from the makir, there is a certain change in the body that the person feels, the person realizes, and therefore that is what the hargasha, that's how you define the hargasha. Even if it did not leave the body at all. It means once the hargasha is felt, that already makes the woman tamei mid'oraisa, that specific form of hargasha. But if the blood would come from the aliyah, come from a place not from the rechem, not dam nida, or damaka, for example, there wouldn't be that form of hargasha, that the same hargasha that he compares to hargasha of meraglaim. Hargasha of meraglaim, the body feels that it's moving from one place to another. But if it's just blood, if it's a cut, or it's damina aliyah, that's not a hargasha that you will understand with definition of hargasha. It's not that form of hargasha that you know that something relocated from one place in the body to another place of the body. And that's why, when it comes to Amaka, he says the Rambam uses the word sheseses. It's flowing. He doesn't say that she feels blood going. It's flowing out. Why is that? Because at the time of Amaka, there is no difference in Teilus Aguf. There's no shinui, there's no change in the bodily functions. There is, you feel that something is flowing, but there's not a change that you could pinpoint and say something changed now, and that is what the Harbasha is. The definition of Harbasha is a change that you can feel in your body, feel it with you know the siman, you feel it, you understand that something has changed over here, and now there is a movement of blood from one place to another place. And what's that feeling? The way the Alter Rebbe describes it is that the blood of Nida, the hateva deicheu lebachutz, the nature is pushing this blood out of the body. And therefore it feels like it's you have that hargasha in you that there's something has to go out of the body. That's what's similar to Meir Aglaim. It's the shinui, the Rebbe says, shinui b'toil des gufa, it's a change in the way the body functions. Ba'akiras adam, you feel ba'akiras adam, that the blood has moved, has left one place. V'yetziasei mimekayre, and that now it's left from the makar. Now you feel that it's moving, and you feel that it left the makar. Kehargashas akiras meir aglaim mamish, just like hargasha of akiras meir aglaim, when you feel it's moving from the bladder out of your body. So that is essentially the way the Alter Rebbe defines these hargashas. What are these hargashas? Now there are other hargashas which are discussed in Paiskim. The Rebbe doesn't mention them, or mentions them, but one of them is Zivas Davar Lach, which we're going to discuss soon, that the Tzemach Tzedek differentiates between that one and the other forms of hargashas. We're going to explain it in a second. So that is essentially what hargasha is, the definition of hargasha. So, the question is that do you need hargasha that the niftach hamakar? Alter Rebbe seems to imply you don't need hargasha at niftach hamakar. In the Alter Rebbe it says it's the way he understands the Taisvus. You don't even need that full form of hargasha. You just have to feel that there is a blood is moving from one place to another. You don't have to feel that it left the makar. According to the Rambam, you have to feel that the makar opened up. So you don't have to feel, the Alter Rebbe understands that you don't have to feel that the makar opened up, the hargasha that niftach makar, and you also don't have to feel that the blood is moving from one, that you feel that it left the makar and went to Bais HaChitzon. As long as you feel that it's going in the Bais HaChitzon and you feel that form, you understand there's a change in your body, that's already considered a hargasha. So this is the definition of hargasha. So now let's go to the end of the Sa'if, where it says, if she had hargasha that niftach mekoyre l'haitzidam, so obviously the Shulchan Aruch says the definition of hargasha is niftach mekoyre, there has to be a psicha, you have to feel psichas hamakar. The Alter Rebbe explains it doesn't actually mean that you have to feel psichas hamakar, but the hargasha happened. And then afterwards, afterwards she did a bdika and she didn't find anything. There is an opinion which says that she is tamei. Right? What are these opinions that say she's tamei and when? So I mentioned in the previous shiur, you have the Piskei Dinim, the Talmud of Tzemach Tzedek on Siman Kuf Tzadik. And in the first one, when he says, Im hergisha v'achak Botko achakach v'loi motzo klum, yesh mishem eshitmei. That's the words of Trumas Hadeshin. Botko achakach v'loi motzo klum. But then he continues and he brings a machlekes kreisi u'pleisi with the Chavas Das. He says, when we say afil motzo klum the tmeya, when do we say it lo motzo klum she's tamei? It's only when she did not check a shiur verses shel hargasha. During the shiur verses of hargasha, which is that Tzemach Tzedek is going to explain. Now, this is not Tzemach Tzedek. In the Tshuva is going to explain how much that shiur verses is. Aval bodkas from besoich shiur verses umatza tehira. That's a crazy place. If she did a bdika during the time of shiur verses, means she felt hargasha, and then she did a bdika right away, teich shiur verses, and the bdika came out clean, she is tahir. That's a crazy place. The Chavas Das, punkt verkehrt. If she does the bdika while, even during shiur verses, she is still tamei. Why is that? Let's start first with the Chavas Das, then we'll go to the crazy place. The Chavas Das is in Biurim, Sa'if Katan Gimel. So first he explains why it makes sense to say like the Kresi Uplesi. He doesn't mention Kresi Uplesi, but why does it make sense according to like a shit of Kresi Uplesi? According to logic, if a woman does a bdika right afterwards, but Shiur v'eses, and she doesn't find anything, logic would dictate that she should be tired. Why? Because why do we say, okay, let's go back a step. Why do we say that when she's badka atzma and she matzah marator, she's tired? If she badka atzma and she didn't find anything, she's tameh. We say probably the blood disappeared somewhere. Trunk, it fell, she couldn't find it, whatever. If it's teich shiur v'eses, logic would dictate that she should be tired. She didn't find anything. Because that obviously means the blood couldn't go anywhere. Or the Rosh of the Chavas Das is, if there is blood, she would for sure have found it right away. This blood, where did it go to? Where else could it have disappeared to? You didn't give it a chance to go elsewhere. Couldn't get lost anywhere. The aid was during that time of Shiur v'eses, and he could have, during the bdika, and you could have seen the blood. However, he says, but still, despite the fact that logic dictates it that way, he understands the words of Trumas Hadashin and the Shulchan Aruch, that even if she does a bdika during Shiur v'eses, right away afterwards, and she does not find anything, she's still Tameh. That's the. It's in page Reish Mem Daled in your books if you want to see it. And he brings a proof from the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Kuf Peiches that over there it says in Botko Miyad, if she checks in Kuf Peiches, and here if she checks right away and she finds something tar, she's tar. It says Miyad, Botko Miyad. So that means if she didn't check at all, he understands if she did not check at all, she's tamei even during Shiur v'eses. It doesn't say that if it says Botko Miyad and she found Maras Tahoides, then she's tired. But if it wasn't miyad, she's tamei. And if she didn't find anything, it doesn't say miyad. In general, so it doesn't make a difference if it's miyad or not miyad. Right away, it's always us. That's the Chavas Das. That's the Yesh Oimrim in the Piskei Din of Tzemach Tzedek. The first opinion that he brings is the Kresi Uplesi, which says that if Batka Miyad and she didn't find anything, she started. That Kresi Uplesi is also mentioned in the Piskei Tshuva, in Sifkot and Hey, where he says that Ochin Das Kresi Uplesi b'Sifkot and Gimel Einekain is after he quotes the Chavas Das. Elo Davko im loy Batka tekev k'Shiur v'eses. Only if she didn't do bdika right away during Shiur v'eses, Amina Chazaka did also. That's when we say that there was a chazaka that she saw, and it disappeared. So therefore she is tamei. But if it was done during Shiur v'eses and she didn't find anything, she is tahir. The Piskei Tshuva says you could be medayek the same thing from the Siddur Tahara. So what is this Shiur v'eses? How do we follow it? If the Piskei Din of the Talmud Tzemach Tzedek brings both shittas, obviously he brings the first one, and then he says Yesh Mishayimer. But what do we follow? So there's a bunch of Tshuvas of the Tzemach Tzedek on the topic, but there's two I'm going to focus on today: Kuf Lamed Beis and Kuf Lamed Gimel. They're page Kuf Lamed Beis is page 203 in what I printed for you, and Kuf Lamed Gimel is page 204. I will start with Kuf Lamed Gimel, then go to Kuf Lamed Beis. Why did she have a Haggasha? She didn't see him. Was there something disappeared? So maybe it wasn't a real Haggasha. How you? So you don't know? Maybe it wasn't a real Haggasha. So Kuf Lamed Gimel, he goes through the whole topic. the first thing that the Tzemach Tzedek says in the first Sa'if, first ois of this, of Tshuva, of Siman Kuf Lamed Gimel, first he brings the Shita of the Kreisio Plesi, where he brings the Shita of the Kreisio Plesi that if she does a bdika during the middle of Shiur Vesas, within Shiur Vesas, and she doesn't find anything, she is tired. That's how the Kreisio Plesi understands that the Trumas Hadeshin, and only if there's a bdika after Shiur Vesas. And therefore, he says, therefore, if she finds a Mara Lavan, she's also for sure tired. Yeah, that's obvious. If she doesn't find anything, she finds a Mara Lavan afterwards, and she does not, it's the same. If she's not finding anything after Shiur Vesas, she's fine. For sure, if she finds a Mara Lavan, also she's fine.
After Shiur Vesas? After Shiur Vesas?
Teich Shiur Vesas. As first, the question was about one that found Mara Lavan after Shiur Vesas. That's the question that this siman is talking about. But from that you understand the whole general mahalach of it. So first he brings the Kreisio Plesi. And he brings the Chavas Das also. And the last three words of the Kitzur on Eis Aleph is the important ones to know. Pirush Kreisio Plesi Ikar. First thing is, Kreisio Plesi is the shit that we follow. That's the Ikar. And we're going to see he's even more mekel in the Kreisio Plesi. Then, Sif Beis, he brings a raya from the words of the Trumas Hadeshin, from the words of the Trumas Hadeshin, that he says from there, it's Masha, where he brings in the Trumas Hadeshin, Siman Eshmin Vav, that Isha Shirgisha Be'atzma, Sheniftach Mekoira Veholcho Botko Es Atzma Miyad, Umotza ala eid lachluchis love. Yeah, so it says the whole history. It says a woman came, she felt that there was niftach mekoira, and she went, and she did a bdika right away, and she found lachluchis love. So first thing that Tzemach Tzedek tells you is, usually, just back when you read a Shalos Tshuvos, you read the question is from the Rav. Not always you could be medayik from the question that the Rav sent, because maybe he wasn't the greatest and most knowledgeable guy, and you don't know who sent the questions. So the first thing he tells the Trumas Hadeshin, he wrote his own questions, the question and the answers. So you can be medayik in the Trumas Hadeshin, aside from the question, aside from the answer. So this introduction, you want to be medayik from the Trumas Hadeshin, be medayik from the question. He says, he created questions to present his tshuvas. So therefore, the fact that it says, that Tzemach Tzedek says, the fact that it says veholcho, she had to go and do a bdika, means that it didn't happen right away. Because if it would happen right away, she do botka miyad, botka satsa miyad. It says holcho botka. She went, and then she did a bdika. And then she found lachluchis lava. So for that we see that she left. Yeah, and she went somewhere. Then she did a bdika, it was after Shiur Vesas, and she found something white, and she's tired. And that is a proof to the Kreisio Plesi that if she did a bdika, Toich Shiur Vesas, she didn't find anything, or she did a bdika after Shiur Vesas and she found white, she is still tired. But then he goes and he says, but you have a Siddur Tahare, and the Siddur Tahare is medaktik from the Trumas Hadeshin. From the Trumas Hadeshin, you can medaktik maybe that maybe Lav Dafka, it's fully like the Kreisio Plesi. I'm not going to go into this one now, but the reason why I want to do this is because I want you to read the Kitzur, where he tells you what Shiur Vesas is. Right? How do you learn it from the Kitzur? The Kitzur summarizes for you what he was discussing in this whole thing. And one of the things he mentioned, how does he start the words of the Kitzur? By saying, Af al pi shebodka es atzma achar beizoi gimel minuten. She did a bdika after 2 or 3 minutes. Umotza mare lovon, and she found a white mare. Yesh lahakel gam tumas hadesh midas hargasha bezu. So what is Shiur Veses? Less than 2 minutes. Because the fact he tells you, beizoi gimel minutim, then you have to explain that according to Masadeshan, if she found white, it's still good. But that's after he explains to you that according to Masadeshan, if she checks after Shiur Veses and she finds white, she started. But what's a Shiur Veses? Basic Gimel Minutin. You're going to see in 2 other places. In Tzemach Tzedek, he also says the Shiur of 2 minutes. 2 minute Shiur is Shiur Veses. Up to 2 minutes seems like up to 2 minutes is Shiur Veses. 2. Huh? What's the logic behind it? Probably the amount of time it takes for the blood to flow out. Probably, I don't know, but that's what I would guess. Because he says, "Im kam man ikval hashta yochali shisakev ktsas erech zeh." It's the amount of time that it would take for it to go out. 2 minutes. That's how. And if there would be blood, it would probably come out within those first 2 minutes. Afterwards, if she checks a long time after she doesn't find anything, we say 2 minutes passed, 3 minutes passed, 5 minutes passed, it disappeared. We don't know where it is. But now he goes even more. He brings the shitta, in Sif Daled, he brings the shitta of the Radbaz. The Radbaz Bichlal disagrees with the notion that Hargasha is deraisa. He's not so sure that the Hargasha, the whole concept of Hargasha is deraisa. Could be that Hargasha is a chashash of a deraisa. It's not fully deraisa. Could be something similar to it. And therefore the Radbaz's shitta is that if she checks, and he's medame Hargasha to Vestus. The Radbaz compares Hargasha to Vestus the Rabbanon. And by Vestus, we say it's the Rabbanon. By Hargasha, they take the same position. By Vestus, if a woman does a bdika afterwards, we still say she didn't find anything. The Shas Vesta, yeah, she does. She says Vesta is on today, daytime. She didn't do a bdika, she forgot. She does a bdika at night. And she didn't find anything. She started. We don't see the blood disappeared somewhere, right? That's, we know from Vestus, we don't say that. So the Radbaz compares Hargasha to that. So it's the same thing. If she checks after a while and she doesn't find anything, she's still tired. Because he compares Hargasha to Vestus, and if there would be something, it would be visible. The fact that she checked and she didn't find anything according to Radbaz, she's still tahira. And we don't take her out of her chazaka of tahira because of a Hargasha which he compares to Vestus. And that Tzemach Tzedek is actually medayek from the Ramon Darkemosh. It's mashma a little bit like the Radbaz also. So that, but the Tzemach Tzedek doesn't like this opinion of the Radbaz. He doesn't want to take the opinion of the Radbaz. He says there's a very crucial, important difference between Vestus and Hargasha. Why is that? Just a basic difference. By Vestus, why do we say that if you don't find anything, she is tired? There was a Vestus today, or yesterday, daytime. She didn't do a bdika. She did a bdika after Zman, Shas Vesta. She didn't find anything, she started. Why is that? He says, by Vesta, if she did not have any Hargasha whatsoever during the whole Vestus, and then she did a bdika and she didn't find anything, the fact she didn't have Hargasha is a raya. She didn't have any period. If there would be a re'iyah, she would have Hargasha. The fact that she didn't have a Hargasha, and then you do a bdika also. So you do a bdika, and there's no Hargasha. But if there is a Hargasha, there's already a problem with a cheskas tahara. You can't just say that a vesis which passes without any Hargasha is the same as having Hargasha. Having Hargasha is having something, a certain body change, that something happened. So you can't just brush it off and say, just like by a vesis, that time passes, you don't see anything, you do a bdika, it's fine. Same thing by a Hargasha, that you do a bdika afterwards and you don't find anything, it's still fine. Or to rephrase it a little bit, by a vesis which passes, she's be'etzim tar because there was no Hargasha. That's the raya that she's tar. The bdika only confirms what we already know. There is a Hargasha, it is no Hargasha, there's a time of vesis, it passes, there was no Hargasha. Really, she's tar. She didn't feel anything, she's tar. Vesis is the Rabbanan, it's chashash. Maybe a Hargasha is going to come, but the time passed and there was no Hargasha, so you're fine. The bdika you do afterwards just confirms what you already know. You confirm that there was nothing happened. So she has a chazak of tahira, she remains in the chazaka of tahira, because nothing changed. By a Hargasha, that you do a bdika afterwards, once she feels the Hargasha, she's in a suffix. Maybe she is tamei, maybe she's not tamei. What are you basing yourself on? The bdika. The only thing which is going to determine whether she's tahor or tamei is the bdika. So if you're going to determine it based on the bdika, you can't just brush it off and say, check, it could be an hour later, 2 hours later, 6 hours later, check it and still nothing is there, it's fine. Obviously something happened. We have to determine what happened. If we could determine that what happened is fine, then she's fine. But if we can't determine what happened, it's fine, we have a problem. So that's what Tzemach Tzedek says, even if you want to put aside the machlekes, whether vesis is the Rabbanan deraisa, Hargasha is the Rabbanan deraisa, put all that aside. Practically speaking, a vesis is no action. Nothing happens, so there's nothing to check for. The checking is extra. Hargasha, something happened. You're going to have to determine it somehow or another. Therefore, you can't just brush off. So according to the Radbaz, you could say, it could be toilet Hargasha, just like he says, why does he say Hargasha is not deraisa? It could be toilet Hargasha Smelaglaim, Hargasha Seid, Hargasha Shamesh, whatever it is. You could be toilet in another Hargasha, but you have a Hargasha that you have to deal with. You can't just brush it off. So Tzemach doesn't like, he says, the fact is, you can't go according to the Radbaz that just pushes the Hargasha. The Hargasha pushes it aside and say, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. You can't stand be toilet in something else. But now comes the Tzemach Tzedek and tells you in Sifov, Kol zeh b'din Hargasha de psichas hamakar. What Hargasha are we talking about over here? That what we said up until now, that we're machmir and these Hargashas, that you have to have a bdika, that even if you want to follow the Kresi Placey, you want to be tar, you have a bdika which came out completely clean with nothing on it. Toich Shiur veses, she's tar. And afterwards, if it came out white, she's tar. If it came out mara tar, she's tar, after Shiur veses. It's only Hargasha of psichas hamakar. That means we'll call the original Hargasha that's being discussed. Which psichas hamakar, like we said before, doesn't mean that the makar opened up. It means that the flowed from the makar. It depends if follow Rashi, Ramban, whichever Rambam, Taisus, whichever one to take it. The Hargasha, that's the one we're talking about over here. But if she did not have the Hargasha of psichas hamakar, she did not have the Hargasha of the blood flowing from the makar to the Bais HaChitzin, if you want to take the most extreme quote from the Alter Rebbe to be machmer. All she has, it was the she felt something, some form of liquid traveling through her body. So over there, he brings in the Siddur Tahara that it's a suffix, and you try to be toilet in something else. So we try to be toilet, or more common, you try to be toilet, you try to find something to be toilet in. You don't right away say that it's like a regular Hargasha, and whatever happened, it's like a regular Hargasha, and whatever, and you have to be machmer. No, if it's Hargasha, Zivas Dovah Lach, it's not the same as a regular. we don't apply all the dinim that we say, all the chumras we said now about bdika after Hargasha to a bdika after Hargasha, which is only zivas davar lach. Therefor, Tzemach Tzedek says, if the Hargasha is davar lach, we make a more. And even more so, if this woman has she's regila, call it the chazak, it's not really the chazak, but she's regila, she's used to seeing other forms of tahar discharges. The tzrogil ba zivas lecha levana. In such a scenario, even if she doesn't do a bdika at all, she's still tahar. Because we say she felt the zivas davar lach. We know that she usually sees lecha levana. Therefore, we say we're toile that this davar lach, zivas davar lach, the Hargasha zivas davar lach resulted in what she usually has, which is lecha levana, and therefore she is mutter. And he mentions also that's what he continues in Sif Zayin about a woman who's used to seeing a lecha levena, that over there, if she sees if she feels zivas davar lach, even if she didn't do a bdika at all, she is tahar. But if she's not rogil to see a lecha levena, then we have to. So then he explains. He says if she sees it after 2 minutes, which is after Shiur Veses, then yesh lahakel.
She sees the
White.
She sees the
Mara Lovon, after 2 minutes you could be mater. Even though it's after Shiur Veses, but it's like close enough to after Shiur Veses. Now, so if you want to summarize this whole Tzemach Tzedek into one sentence, he takes from the Trumas Hadeshen, where he says, Holcha, she got up and she left, that it's not Shiur Veses. When she finds a Mare Tahir, it doesn't have to be within Shiur Veses, but it's pretty close thereafter. It's Samach Shiur Veses. It's a new gather. It's not within Shiur Veses. It's not after Shiur Veses. After Shiur Veses could be a day later. It's after Shiur Veses, but very close to it. Because it all starts with the Trumas Hadeshen. The Raya of the Tzemach Tzedek starts with the Trumas Hadeshen, that she got up and she went and she did a bdika. She got up miyad and she went and she did a bdika. So she got up and she walked and she had to do, so it was 2-3 minutes, whatever it was. But it was still close enough to Shiur Veses. That is essentially in Kuf Lamed Gimel. Similar idea you have also in Kuf Lamed Beis. It's a little bit of a shorter siman. It's the same question. That she felt niftach avitzn, felt hargosh psichas hamoker. Not zivas davar lach. She felt hargosh psichas hamoker. And she didn't find anything. Yad mamash. Do you need the bdika to happen right away to make it mutter or not? And he goes through the same ideas that I mentioned in Kuf Lamed Gimel. And first he says, if she finds a Mara Lavon, doesn't have to be miyad. Like we also in Kuf Lamed Gimel we saw it already. Why? He says logically, if she finds a Mara Lavon afterwards, even after Shiur Veses, Adif litlois hargasha bezeh, since Ois Beis and Kuf Lamed Beis, mishenoi mashenevad adam. It makes more sense to say that she saw something white, a kasher emade, it was probably this. Instead of going and saying, it was something else, it was blood, the blood got lost, and this came, so where did this come from? It came afterwards, after Shiur Veses till now, till she did the bdika, a new tar dikemade showed up over there, and the blood that came in Chatchila disappeared. That doesn't make sense. So if she found something tar, even after Shiur Veses, she is fine. He still says the same thing about the Radbaz. You can't take the Radbaz's shitte that even if she doesn't check, if you can't compare Vestas to Hargasha. The only thing you can say is because by Vestas she has a chazaka, and she didn't have a re'iyah, so therefore we say she didn't have a hardgasha, so we say that she's fine. But if she actually had a hardgasha, and she didn't find anything, and you did a bdika much later, what are you going to be toilet in? You're going to say, what could you be toilet in? Furthest toilet is, there was a maratoir, and the maratoir disappeared. And you did a bdika, and you didn't find anything, the maratoir disappeared, so she's tar. That's too far-fetched. To say that that there was a maratoir afterwards, and you found it, that makes sense. The other extreme is that blood was there and it disappeared. That's also not so extreme. But to say that a while later you checked and there's nothing there, and you toilet that maybe there was a kosher imare and maybe that disappeared, that's too far. That's too far to push. But if she does find something tar, then you could be mekel. He says, that he concludes, he says, being that Hargoshe, he still says, being that the Radbaz, Ken yeshlit pes kveses the Rabbanan, lachanire lahakel b'kai gavni, he could be mekel. In which case, when she did a bdika after Shiur Veses, but she found the Maratar. And then he brings the Radbaz, he continues the Radbaz, but if you look at the Radbaz Ba'etzim, the Radbaz is mekel even more, that even if she didn't find anything, she's fine. He says that's too far to go. And then he goes into the crazy place which I mentioned before, which we discussed, that if she doesn't check and she finds during Shiur Veses, then it is fine. But if she finds after Shiur Veses, then it's a problem. Right, that is the shit of the crazy places that Tzemach Tzedek says in Kuf Lamed Gimel. That is the Iker de Kashita. And over here also he says the same thing. He also, when you in the Guf of Ois Gimel, he doesn't say those words that the Iker is like the crazy place. But in the Kitzur, therefore, if she did a bdika and she found Maralavan even after Shiur Veses, she's fine. If she did a bdika within Shiur Veses and she found nothing, she's also fine. And as the Tzemach Tzedek says, it could be that the Radbaz himself would be, when he says, you could be medayik from the Radbaz, that when he says Bdaka Atzma and didn't find anything, it's also Tech Shiur Veses. He says it as a maybe. And then he goes to the same thing as in Kuf Lamed Gimel. Could be it's two versions of the same tshuva, I don't know, but because it's not the same question, but could be that it was written and there was same topic. Because after the Kitzur and Eis Gimel, he goes into the same topic of this. All this is talking about if the Hargasha was Psichas HaMokir. But if the Hargasha was Zivas Zavarlach, you could be Toila. So even if she does, over here he mentions the same thing of the 2 minutes. It's in the middle of. He also uses the shiur of 2 minutes in this. Where it calls about yes, he says about the 2 minutes. But further in the same one, he brings from the Taisus and the Ramban. He discusses that maybe it could be up to 15 minutes. One of the things he says, up to 15 minutes, he brings this svara, maybe up to 15 minutes it takes for the dam nistarech, takes a long time till it travels. But Bepoil, he still sticks with the svara of 2 to 3 minutes. Like in the beginning of the Kol Zev, oy de gamin amok avad yitzir lechutz, ein tzorech lisakev kol kach. Doesn't need to, from the mocker all the way to leave the body, it doesn't take that long. Even though further down he says, svara me 15 minutes. He says, so if it's found after 2 minutes, around 2 minutes is still fine. It's very little. So I got stuck and it didn't finish the travel all the way out. But he still uses the time of 2 minutes. But if a woman is rogil to see Maris Tehoiris, then she doesn't. Then if she's rugil simat tahiris, and even if she does not check, we are toile in the matas tahiris. If she has this hרגשה of zivas davar lach, and he brings a raya to it from the Chochmas Adam. The end of the Tzemach Tzedek Kufam Beis brings a raya from the Chochmas Adam. He says, Shuv ro'isi kain, he concludes, I saw the similar thing in the Chochmas Adam, Klal Tzadik Tes, if Gimel, v'zeh l'shayne v'nira li, dehu adin noshim sherogil b'hem leicha leveina muchzakes b'zeh, afilu hirgish azivas davar lach v'lei botko, tehayro, kevon shemuchzakes b'kach u'legila b'kach telinon b'matzoi. When she's muchzak to have leicha leveina, and she's rogil to have leicha leveina, we're totally in this. He says the Pischat Shuvah brought it. L'shachach Sodom lehevi raya l'davar. L'fi anius daiti yesh brur raya brura lezeh mehol telinim ben Maka canal. He says when he brings the proof that he brings before, that just like when a person has a Makkah, and you know that there's a Makkah mitzidam, you toilet the dam in the Makkah. So same thing when you have a leicha, you know the person has a leicha leveina. Same applies over there, and your toilet in what is matzoi, and not look for something which is far-fetched and not matzoi. You're done. Ramosha.